All right, let's officially start this webinar. Welcome everybody to the Raygun webinar, Connecting Code to Customer, a deep dive into customer-centric monitoring. As mentioned, this is something we're really passionate about here at Raygun, the power to connect your code to the customer's experience. I'm excited to be joined by Innocent and Holly. We're kind of going to get two really important perspectives today. We've got the software engineer, he's tasked with solving these problems and getting to the nitty-gritty, the actionable diagnostics to solve them and resolve them. And then we've got Holly, who actually works with many of our key accounts here at Raygun, our big customers, works closely with them to ensure they're getting the most out of Raygun. She's going to share a little bit about her perspective, but what's really cool is, we go to them teaching them about how to use it, but they also teach us because everyone's got different environments and different ways they do things and different priorities. So she's got a really nice perspective where she can tie that into real world examples. So they're going to kind of feed off one another. I'm going to be over at the computer fielding questions and kind of coordinating behind the scenes. So let's jump in. Today's agenda, as mentioned, we're going to do a couple of quick intros with these two, and then we're going to dive straight into it. Innocent's promised he can get us set up on a modern monitoring stack in 5 minutes. That's not just putting the code into the system, but that's also seeing data as well. We're focusing on crash reporting, which is errors, front and back end, and also real user monitoring, which is your front end monitoring. So he's going to get that set up and just quickly run through how easy it is. I know we've got a lot of customers out there, so just bear with us for a few minutes as we kind of recap on that stuff. And then we're going to dive into 3 customer-centric monitoring strategies, again with Holly's real world examples thrown in. First of all, we'll start with errors and crashes, connecting those to real customers, their experience and how to take action. Then we're going to take a look at monitoring front-end performance trends and drilling into individual customer sessions and load times, so we can kind of tie that into individual customers. And then finally, a new feature of ours is the customer section, and this is being more proactive with starting with the customer and going through that lens and finding the issue and resolving them and saving time. Then we're going to have some time for Q&A. Please, if you have any questions, just use the chat function or the Q&A. We'll be fielding those at the end. There might be a way that I can fold them in mid-discussion. We'll see how we go there, but we'll certainly have time at the end to cover any questions. And yeah, I think, we're going to be in the product a lot. So if you see something that you're not sure of, just please let us know, and I would love to kind of take some rabbit holes, some tangents, and help you out there. Really quickly, I know many of you are probably aware, what is Raygun? Modern suite of tools for error and performance monitoring. A few things that we hang our hat on is being customer-centric, as I mentioned, and that's connecting your code to customer impact. Actionable, we don't just kind of show you what's going on, what's going wrong, we show you how to fix it. We're really proud of how deep we can take you to that line of code or that instant level diagnostics. Full stack, so we help you monitor your full stack from front end to back end. We've got 3 products. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about real user monitoring and crash reporting mostly, but we also have APM, which is more server-side performance monitoring, and easy to set up and works seamlessly with the tools you love. We're probably not going to dive into too many integrations today, but we do have a bunch, GitHub, Octopus, Jira, Slack, PagerDuty, many more, so you can work with the tools you already use. And then for folks that aren't customers, jump in, 14-day free trial, simple usage-based pricing from $4. So that's that. I'm going to hand it over to Holly to introduce herself. And I'm going to be over here answering any questions and keeping an eye on things. Enjoy the show. Over to you guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Andre.
Awesome. Thanks, Andre. So yeah, as he said, I'm Holly. I'm the Customer Success Manager at Raygun. I've been with Raygun since the end of 2019. So my job basically is to work and partner with our customers, just make sure that they're getting the most value out of Raygun and that they're actually achieving the goals that they come to us needing to achieve, and really understanding how their customers are experiencing their software. And as Andre said, we learn just as much from you as you learn from us. So really keen to always chat with customers, hear how you're finding things, how you're using it. Raygun isn't a super opinionated product, so there's so many ways you can use it. So yeah, I love to work with customers to do training, help answer any questions. And yeah, that's what my role at Raygun.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Innocent Bindura. I am one of the engineers here at Raygun. Have pretty much worked with all 3 products. And now I spend a bit of time with customers on webinars and customer phone calls, helping out where I can to integrate customers with Raygun and just ensuring that they get the best output out of their development efforts. Over to you, Holly.
Cool, yeah. So today, as Andre mentioned at the start, we're basically going to do a bit of a deep dive into how you can actually improve the performance. Obviously, you know, you're here today because you know that performance matters. Some of you are probably customers, some might be new to Raygun. So we're basically just keen to show you how simple it is to set up, and then the power in having a good workflow, and how you can actually, yeah, understand where the issues are and then how you actually resolve them. So in a sense, going to start off by showing you how we can quickly set it up. It's super seamless. We support all major languages and frameworks. So yeah, do you want to jump into that, Innocent?
Sure, thanks, Holly.
No worries.
So first things first, I'm doing this on the assumption that you already have an application that you're interested in monitoring. So I won't be going through the process of creating an application, but we'll jump straight into Raygun. So the first thing that you'll need is to create a bucket that will contain your data as it comes through. So once you have signed up for a free account, you can go straight ahead and create an application. And we'll give it a name. So let's call it H&I. Presentation. And I am going to turn off these notifications because I will be getting notifications about this application in my emails, and there's already a ton of those coming through. So I'll continue. And the next step that you'll see here is a list of setup instructions. So depending on what language you'll be using, you can select your language and you'll be taken straight to the instruction sets that you'll need for setting up. So currently this is crash reporting. You can also do the same with real user monitoring. So that's where I'm actually going to start my setup from. I have got an MVC shopping cart that I have contributed to. It's an open source shopping cart called smartstore.net. That's the one that we're going to use in this demonstration. It has got some JavaScript on the front end and a .NET backend. So I've also taken the liberty ahead of time to create a patch file containing all the changes that I'll need. So I actually think the only thing that I'll need from here is the API key, which I see here. I'll copy that and jump straight into my IDE and start having a look at things. So as you can see here, this script needs to go in the HTML header. For me, that will be in one of the shared views so that it is persisted across the entire application. And the setup config for the provider will also be in the same file. So I use fork for working with Git, and I will jump straight and see what changes I have there. Okay, that's fine. I am going to pick up the patch that I created for this webinar. So that's the RAM one. That's the one I want. That will set us up with real user monitoring. And let's go through the changes and talk about those changes a little bit and show you what they all mean. So this will be my shared layout that will be persisted across all the pages. As you can see, I have pulled the Raygun provider from our CDN, and I have gone ahead and also configured the provider for picking up the information from our pages when they are running. So there I've got the previous API key that I will replace shortly. And I've also gone ahead and enabled both crash reporting and RAM. I don't know, can people see my screen?
Yeah.
Awesome. It would have been too late to ask at this point, because I would have to go back and start talking about those things again. Okay, cool. User details are optional by default. So if you need to capture your user details, you have to put in just a little bit of extra effort to get those details out. So for this particular application that we're talking about here, those changes will be coming in the form of, I've added a hidden input here that will contain that information. My pages are compiled server-side, so I thought it would be easy to just put those details in a hidden input. Some people may disagree with this approach. For me, it's just for presentation's sake. It's not a production-ready implementation. And I have modified the model to push those details through. And I've also gone into the common controller that is shared by all my controllers within the application to add those details to, so that they are always there in all the pages that we are going to be working with. Awesome. So I am going to come into my IDE and build this. Shift build. While that is happening, I will quickly commit the changes. Awesome. The build is done. I'm gonna go there. Okay, so I remember I copied my API key that I still need to update. So I am going to come in here and look for the config file. Would it be this one? Yes, that's the one that's currently open. Oh, I don't see my Raygun changes there. Which one did I just commit? Oh, sorry. This is in the RAM files. So we haven't set up crash reporting for the backend yet. I will get to that momentarily. So jump back into here, shared views. Views, find the shared one. There we go. And within that one, there is the layouts. And within the layout one, I'm interested in the document one. Cool. And there's the API key that we need to update. So let me just make sure that I've got the right value there. Oh. And I will put, oh. Now this is way too complicated than I envisaged. So let's go back to the application, copy. Paste. And rebuild. So while the build is going, we're going to jump back into the Raygun application that we created. And I'm expecting to see some RAM data as soon as we start surfing our application. So this is the application that we were talking about. Linocent is my fantasy name, so I tend to use it for a lot of things and some namespaces when I'm fooling around with new technologies and playing around with demos like we're doing here today. The application is taking a little bit longer to load, and that's because we've just recompiled it and it's warming up. Awesome. And I expect this to change in a moment. while that is happening, we can take a look at the details that have come through. Let me undock that, make it full screen, and go on to the network. And I see the event that was sent over to Raygun has gone through, and there is another one with our API key. So that means the data is actually going through to Raygun. And if I come back here, voila, we've got data. So that's how simple it is to set up real user monitoring on the front-end side of things. I am going to jump now into setting up crash reporting on the backend. So again, I've gone ahead of time to create a patch file containing all the necessary changes that I'll need. I'm hoping this will save me some time. So also in the same repository, I'm going to apply my second patch, which is the crash reporting one, and we'll take a look at the changes and have a bit of a talk about them. So I have used NuGet to pull in the specific Raygun for net providers. If you're Node.js, I think you would be working with NPM, and it's a different case for Ruby as well. We've got a couple of languages that are supported in crash reporting. So the main changes that I'm interested in for .NET are, we have defined a Raygun section and also gone and defined the Raygun config containing the API key. And we have also added an HTTP handler that will capture all the unhandled exceptions and help process them, or rather send them through to Raygun for processing and presentation in the Raygun app. I see this one is also coming through, or that's because it's got changes that we changed the API key there. I've also gone in and deliberately added an exception. Anything that is currently below $10 within my shopping cart will throw an exception. So I'm going to jump back into the application here and build. Let those changes take effect. Nothing is broken. Oh, I still need to update the API key as well. So this is the API key that I'll be using. Copy that. Jump into the web config. I think it's this one. And there we see the Raygun section defined and the API key. I'm going to put the API key there, Control S to save that, and rebuild. Should go a little bit faster now. There we go. So if I jump back into my application and go into crash reporting, we are still waiting for data to come through. So I am going to find a product that is below $10 and see if we can cause the application to crash. Again, it's taking a little bit of a long time to load because we have, again, rebuilt the application and it's warming up. And there we go. So we're going to pick something with a price of less than $10. There we go. We've got a crash. I'm expecting the crash reports to start coming through. While we wait for Raygun to process those crashes, I am going to quickly jump into real user monitoring and see what we have. We should now have a couple of page visits, one to the home page and the other one to the digital products. And then the next one crashed. So let's have a look at that. Because we've just set up this application, there's not enough data to show some meaningful trends, but we are definitely getting some data. And if I were to look at this, you can see that the slowest time was for the application to warm up. All the other artifacts are coming in within the time frame that we expect. And I think by now we should be having a crash report. Awesome, there. Our product that has a price of lower than $10 has come through. And we can click through and just have a quick look at what things look like. I think at this point, I'll hand it back over to Holly.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess that really shows the power and how quickly you can really set up Raygun and just how fast you can see exactly what's happening on your application and then how you can actually fix that. So we'll start here with crash reporting. Innocent, if you want to jump into that other application. So we just set that up just for the demonstration purpose that you can see that you instantly are getting that information. But we've got another demo application set up here so that we can dig into it with some historical trends, basically. Again, it's demo data, though. Obviously, we're dealing with some pretty sensitive information. So we just have a few users on this one. But this is what you see when you come into crash reporting. So crash reporting is monitoring the front and the back end, and we diagnose when your customers hit any bugs or crashes. And basically, we smart group errors based on the stack trace, and then they flow into this section here. So we wanted to create a bit of an inbox around resolving errors so that it's really easy for teams to work together to identify performance issues and then easily resolve them. So you can go back and see data as far back as 6 months. You can really see the impact of certain releases and things over time. But down in this section here, so if I talk to one of my customer examples, so Domino's Pizza is one of our larger customers that I work pretty closely with, and they came to us basically with no visibility a few years ago, and they needed to understand how they can actually use Raygun to improve the performance. Obviously, you know, being a pizza ordering platform, payments are involved, and if their customers are having a poor experience, then they're probably going to go to a competitor. They might not come back. So yeah, it's really important that they are prioritizing that performance. So they work in a fortnightly sprint cycle. So every 2 weeks, they target the top 2 errors, and they prioritize this by ordering it by the highest number of affected users. And then they go in and make fixes during that sprint cycle so that they can really make some big performance gains. So what you can do here is if I click into an error, if this is one that we are choosing to fix in the sprint cycle, you can see all the summary, which gives a developer everything that they need to resolve it. Innocent will talk to that in a little bit more detail soon, what you can actually do with that. But you can actually see the number of instances that it has happened, and you can see all of your affected users as well, and when it has most recently occurred and the oldest occurrence as well. So there's some really important information there. You can see all of your customers and then reach out if it was a really bad issue. So yeah, that's kind of where we start. That's some recommendations about the workflow, how you can prioritize solving those issues. But yeah, I'll throw it back to Innocent now to talk about what you can actually do with this information and how you can make a fix.
Awesome, thanks, Holly. So when dealing with bugs and errors in production, like Holly said, the errors that affect the most users are the ones that I want to target, and the ones that are also critical, things that stop, for example, money from flowing into the organization. If I had an integration with a payment gateway and payments were failing, obviously that is a critical bug, no matter how many people it is affecting. So there are various methods I would make use of to prioritize what I get to fix first. But let's jump into one of the errors and see what those errors are all about. So I'm going to pick this one out. I think this one is a front-end error. So one of the things that I really look out for is if I have a stack trace, we've got an integration with GitHub, and we also pull in source maps for minified JavaScript files. So one of the cool features that we have here is this is where the error occurred. The Raygun engine managed to reach out for the source maps associated with the crash, and it pulled the file out and also worked through the source maps and reversed the minification process. So I'm able to jump in straight to the line of code that is causing the error. If we had GitHub integration, there would be a GitHub icon on the left-hand side that I would be able to click on, and then it would also take me through to where the line of code that I'm interested in is at. There are various tabs that you see across the top here. If I receive one of those aggregated errors on the summary page, you would get the topmost error, but on the error details, that's where we would see all the errors that are forming that group. I also get a feel of what the HTTP environment or variables were at the time when that error occurred, the environment that the user was using, what browser, what operating system. This also really helps me to determine if a front-end error is mainly affecting a single browser or a particular browser version, and I would apply some polyfills depending on what I'm seeing coming through in the errors. It might be that some errors are caused because the user is simply using a very old browser that we don't support anymore. In that case, there's not much we can do except advising the user to upgrade to better technology. There's also the ability to send through custom data. For this demo, I didn't attach any custom data, but if there were some application state that I care about that would help me diagnose problems as they occur, there's an opportunity to attach custom, either custom tags or custom data that will enable me to take a deep dive into that particular error and determine why it happened. And obviously for front-end errors, there will be a session tab here showing the activity that my user has gone through. Pardon me. I forgot to put that on flight mode, so it's happening now. Cool. So there's a session tab that would give me information about that particular affected user, and I would be able to go through all their pages that they were viewing, and I would be able to see which page this error occurred on, as indicated by this red box underneath this particular page, page view. And there are some breadcrumbs that will show us what actions the user took and leading to the crash. And obviously, if you wanted to do some auditing of what you're sending through to Raygun, we also present you with the raw data that you have sent through. One of the sensitive things that people worry about is sending PII data. So if you're not sending personal identifiable information, you can also verify that you are not sending it through looking at the raw data here. The reason why I have to put emphasis on this is some of our repositories are write-only. So once we have ingested data, we are not able to delete it. If we have to delete, we will be deleting data for the entire application. So it is important that I stress out that the information you are sending through has to be 100% correct for you to get a good experience out of using crash reporting.
Absolutely.
We'll jump back to crash reporting and show you what the backend errors would look like. So there was, I think this one. Notably, the sessions tab has disappeared. And that's because this was being processed on the server. We don't have context of which user session we were in. There is a way of attaching customer details for server crashes as well. That can be done using the Raygun provider. So for this particular one, we just went in and set it up. We didn't add context as to who the affected users were. Again, there's that concept of aggregated errors and a summary error. At the very top, you get the first error in your summary, and then the rest of the fleshy details within the error details. And we also have a tab that talks about what the HTTP state was when that error occurred, the environment, and this is now the server environment where you are running your application. And then we've got, again, custom data that you can attach to your exceptions as they occur. This is where you would add more context that will help you diagnose the error. And again, raw data. And if we had integrations with GitHub or Jira, you'd then be able to click on the GitHub icon that shows up on the left-hand side and go through to that particular line of code that has been affected. Or you can link this exception with an incident with one of your incident management systems, or you can link it with a ticket for your dev workflow. I think that's it from me for crash reporting.
Yeah. Do you want to just jump back into one of the front end errors just before we jump into real user monitoring?
All right.
Again, I didn't realize, but I jumped into a back end error before. But if we jump into a front end, again, talking about the users, when I'll talk to session information in a little bit more detail when we do get to real user monitoring. But it's just understanding we've had this serious error that's affected our customers, who's been affected. And so if we click in, we can see the affected users here, and you can actually click into that and see everyone that's been affected by that bug or error. And then you can again click into this information, go into a little bit more detail, but we'll go into that in real user monitoring. So that's just how you can really understand who's been affected, what happened, and how can I fix it. So we could jump into real user monitoring now and talk to that in a little bit more detail, but that's crash reporting in a nutshell, and that's how you can go in and yeah, get some really big performance gains from prioritizing those areas that are affecting a lot of your customers. Cool. So this is real user monitoring. So this is our front end monitoring tool. As you saw when Innocent just set that up, you can instantly see how your customers are experiencing your application. So you can see in this performance over time line graph, you can see some key trends in the performance of your app. Obviously, page load time is really important, but we want to go deeper than that and understand how what's actually causing this and how can we improve that performance. And a pretty sobering metric is the fact that 40% of customers drop off the page if it takes longer than 4 seconds to load. So, you know, we all know that performance is important, but that just really hammers home how important it is for both the customer to have a good experience and stay on your site, and that obviously contributes to business outcomes as well. So basically, we wanted to make it easier for teams to understand where to prioritize their efforts to make the biggest performance gains within real user monitoring. So we've created these sections when you scroll down in the page. So this is at the bird's eye view of your whole application, but I'll show you how you dig into particular pages. But you can see here most requested pages. So these are the pages that are getting the most hits by your customers. Again, you can see how many views there are, and then you can see this breakdown here of what's actually causing those. And then another one we want to focus on in particular might be the slowest and most requested pages. So these are the pages that your customers are having the most problems with, basically. So this is probably going to be an area that you really want to prioritize and make some big performance gains. So if I was to click into one of these, we can see a histogram here of the page performance distribution. But again, you know, we've got some key metrics here. We've got core web vitals information there, and you can see in this case, rendering and children in particular have taken a really long time to load that page. You can actually click into the histogram.
So let me help you there a little bit, Holly. This application is a demo application, and I was using the ngrok.io. So you would have noticed that the pages did not group very well. That's because my tunneling service kept changing the domain. And there's not enough detail to generate the histogram as well. So we'll jump into one of our bigger applications that we run internally within Raygun and show you what the histogram would look like without exposing our customer data.
Yeah. So another one of our customers is one of the biggest streaming companies in the UK, but they've got millions of customers globally. So they use both crash reporting and real user monitoring. So they came to us with a total lack in visibility. And their first goal with having the tools plugged in was to bring their all 14 applications to 99% crash-free users. So they started off with about 65 to 80% crash-free users total, but they have, using Raygun over the last year, they've actually achieved that goal, and they are now at 99% crash-free users, which is a huge achievement. So they've massively upped the performance of all their applications, and so this data flows through into real user monitoring, so you can understand which applications are performing best. So you can make some really big gains. And if we go back to performance here, so yeah, their key focus is performance versus engagement, right? So they want to understand how their customers are experiencing their application, and then the exact journey, what's happened on each page that they've clicked, what happens when they hit an error, are they continuing on with that session after they have hit an error? So we'll jump into that where you can see that within the session information. But if I've identified a page that's loading really slowly, what can I actually do with that information, and how can I fix it, basically? So Innocent, I'll throw it back to you to do a little bit of a deep dive into what you do.
Awesome. So I'm going to open one of these that's looking very interesting. I'm looking in particular one that has got a very long load time. This one was going for 1.54 minutes. So let's find out what that was. This probably came through ngrok.io. Yes. So the problem that I was experiencing with ngrok was my images were not coming through, and that's why the page time took so long to render. So as you can see there, the children items were 1.48 minutes, and we will see why in a short while. So what I'm looking at here is the waterfall chart that shows me all the resources that were pulled in by the page. And within that, I can see that all the images that ngrok was blocking didn't come through. And the transfer of those images took long until such a point where they all timed out. So if I were to diagnose a problem that customers are experiencing, either with images not loading or the website not representing information in a correct format, this is where I would come and look and identify which resources. It might be that they were too big. It might be that they are being blocked, or they are being blocked by your browser as they are perceived to be coming from a different domain. in the event that you are using a CDN with a different domain name to the one that you are using for the application. So those are some of the issues that I would come in and look at. Unfortunately, we don't have much data here. I think at this point, I can safely jump into one of our applications and show you what that data would look like. I think if I go...
And I guess the philosophy behind real user monitoring is, I guess, putting it into perspective. If you take a standard brick and mortar store, for example, if you've got someone on checkout who's being particularly rude to your customers, making a lot of mistakes, this is going to be something that you're going to address. And the exact same thing applies for digital businesses, right? If you've got really slow performing pages, this is something that you need to address and improve on.
Awesome. So this is what the histogram would look like. The bulk of my users will be at the peak on the left-hand side. Yeah, this is a relatively well-performing application. And like Holly indicated earlier, if I wanted to find out who has been affected by the slow speeds, I would be looking to click through there and jump into those sessions and see trends. Particularly what quickly jumps out at me here is people experiencing that P99 figure that we just drilled down to. They're all using the Chrome browser. Most of them are on Windows 10. Well, that seems like there's an even balance between Windows 10 and Mac OS, and they are all over. So possibly this issue has to do with the version of the browser that the users are using. I'm going to jump into one of those and see the chronological order of the page visits. So if you have one of those strict applications that dictates you must visit a page before going to another one, and you had a crash, you would be able to notice that sort of thing here. Or if a user were to call in and say, I'm struggling to use your application, you would be able to offer some level of customer support using this feature in Raygun that shows you where the user is currently at. If the user is currently active, this last page will be glowing green here, and it will show you the current page that the user is currently on. And you can then talk to them on the actions they need to perform on those particular pages. But what I'm really interested in is jumping into the performance of the page here. So just looking at all the metrics that have come through here, the DNS lookup is within acceptable timeframes. The latency is somewhat okay. Server time, I think this is really good. There are some server functions that do take a long time to go through. Transfer is really good. And the child items did take a little bit of a longer time to pull down. So I would be looking to, again, at the sizes of images, or minifying some JavaScript and minifying some CSS in order to optimize the load time for this particular page. This is how I would go about to troubleshoot issues at a very high level using Raygun. Holly, over back to you.
Cool. So that's, yeah, basically real use monitoring at a high level. That's just some of the things and some of the information that you can get. So obviously it's pretty powerful that you can see live session information from your customers. So you can see, and again, that performance versus engagement, you can see how long each page is taking to load. You can see and that when they've had an error, if they continue to engage after that. So there's some really important information there. But our latest update, I guess, is the customer section here. So this used to be called users. We've always had this information, but we've just made some improvements to make it a lot more user friendly. So if I jump in here, So this is where you can see all of your users. So you can search by company name, for example, and then you can see all your customers, and you can click into their names and see exactly how they're experiencing your software. So this is a really good section. It ties together crash reporting and real user monitoring really nicely. And it's basically a place where you can be super proactive in your approach. You know, a lot of customers, I've talked to a few business to consumer customers, but a lot of our customers are business to business. So being proactive and really prioritizing performance for their high value customers is so important. So this can also be a channel for customer support to come as well. So what I'll do is I'll jump into Innocent. And we can see here all of the session information as well as any errors that he's hit. So these ones here with an arrow are the sessions where he has hit an error. So I can click into one of his sessions and I can see the exact journey that he's had on my application. And then if I scroll down, if I go back up, I can see this is where he hit that error, and then I can see the journey after that as well. So this is really so important for engineers to use. It makes the time to resolution for issues a lot faster. You know, engineers don't have to try and replicate the journey. We don't have to question the customer and try to understand their journey. You've got all that information right there. You can click into those pages again to understand what caused the load times if they were slow. You can click back to crash reporting if it was a crash, if that's where you're wanting to prioritize your efforts. So one of my customers that I work closely with again is Spotlight Reporting. So they provide software for accountants and businesses basically to drive smarter business outcomes. And so code performance is a really, really high priority for them. If their code is slow and performing poorly, then their customers probably aren't going to trust that they are a reliable company to work with. So it's always front of mind for them. They like to be proactive. They work with the big four. So if they know that there have been issues, they can jump into customers, search for any customers and see if they've experienced any issues and then reach out to them. So that just shows how you can be, you know, really proactive in your approach to making sure that your customers are happy, they're heard, and you are prioritizing the performance for them. Essentially, all software is made for humans, so you know it needs to be at the front of mind that we are ensuring that they're having a good experience. So yeah, that's our customers section, and yeah, in a nutshell, that's data from both crash reporting and real user monitoring. So yeah, that's basically a run through of how you can really prioritize making big performance improvements for your customers. And as you can see, there's a lot you can do with it. There's a few different ways to prioritize it. You know, every company is different. They've got different workflows and different priorities. So, you know, that's why we're always here as well to help provide suggestions and recommendations. But yeah.
Thanks, Molly. Great, well, it was perfect timing. You know, we've just got a few minutes for questions before we wrap up on time. We have had a few come through. Some I've been able to manage to answer, and others that I'll look to you guys for your help here. One question for you, probably Innocent: does the real user monitoring use the same API and header HTML setup that crash reporting does? My previous developer set up crash reporting, but I have nothing under run or any of the others. Can I easily turn those on?
Yes, they do use the same headers. It's the exact same SDK actually. So there's just a one line that you would need to add for real user monitoring to come through. And I will show you in a bit what that looks like. So again, back here into my shared header, and this line that you see here, the RG for JS, enable pulse, true. That is what you just need to go in and add. That will enable RAM data to come through.
And then you get data coming through straight away. And there is the additional, so by default, it anonymizes those kind of personally identifiable data, but yes, there is an ability, a lot of our customers want that granularity So that's a couple of extra steps that you talked about earlier.
Yes, so you can see the step here that I have gone in and added to pull out that information so that it also comes through.
Great, I hope that helps, Samori. And then we've got another question from Jackson. He saw you mentioning some of the integrations on the crash report, right, when you were going to add it to a Jira ticket, I believe. But you didn't hover over it and maybe not shown the actual integrations in that step. But I thought maybe you could show that. And same for you, Holly, like what are our most popular integrations and how do even we use some of these integrations in the wild?
Okay, so if we've got a bit of time, while you talk about other things and people looking at my screen, I'll jump straight into integrations here and add an integration. So I will set up my personal one. I think it's cancel. Next.
While he does that, so yeah, I mean, Jira is one. You can just automatically add a ticket, and that's going to notify the people in your Jira team in your sprint to solve those. And once you resolve the ticket in Jira, it automatically updates in Raygun as well. So that's helping that kind of that inbox workflow where you're allocating errors and signing them off. One that we use a lot is Slack. We push the error information into our Slack channel, and that kind of helps us drive action when we see things that need attention. What are some others that obviously GitHub, right?
GitHub, Bitbucket, yeah, they all make it a lot more seamless and set all your teams on the same page and knows.
There's also Slack and PagerDuty. So for support folks, you'll be able to quickly respond to errors if they start spiking and Raygun sends you a notification. So I've just gone in and added a Visual Studio Team Services integration. It will work exactly the same as the Jira integration. So here I'm just going to create a new issue. And that will now be linked to my Visual Studio Team Services issues. And we can use that in our sprint planning to prioritize the fixing of those errors.
And setting up these integrations is something that we could not recommend highly enough because it really integrates nicely with the rest of your workflow and adds so much value so that not everything is boxed within Raygun.
Exactly. We understand that everyone's working with a bunch of technology, as do we. Yeah. So, jumping into that line of code at GitHub is a huge step saver. Another one is actually things like Octopus Deploy, where we can track those deployments and tie any errors or performance degradation or improvement to specific deployments. So that's really useful for when you've got your team managing those deployments and watching how it goes into test environments and into the wild. All right, another kind of more technical question probably for you, Innocent, here. Does your APM offering work with serverless offerings like Azure Functions and AWS Lambdas?
So yes and no, depending on which technology you're using. So if you're using .NET, we've got a profiler for .NET in Azure, but it won't work in AWS because the way AWS has re-implemented the language runtime is slightly different to what Azure is doing with it. So we haven't built the support around AWS, but for other languages like Node.js and so forth, if you are in containerized environments, then you can do it. For the serverless ones, there is something that I'm experimenting with. The agent is sort of our winning and limiting factor in those two instances. So if you are using the Lambda functions and you want to profile them for Node.js, and I'm not sure if Lambda supports Ruby, but for Node.js, we can possibly look at running the agent in a container and have your Lambda functions send their UDP packets to that container. Or we can use memory mapped files where your profilers write to file and the agent picks up the data packets from those files.
I've got a couple more details for you.
Okay.
Noted if we already have projects running, how easy it is to leverage on Raygun to accrue benefits of the same. Specifically interested in .NET Azure functions, if that helps.
So RAM and crash reporting will work out of the box. There is a little bit of more effort that needs to be done in terms of config to get APM working.
So what you're seeing, what we see today, which is we're really talking about RAM and real user monitoring, that's for .NET Azure functions.
That will work out of the box, yes.
So yeah, projects that you're already running, you can plug Raygun in and then immediately see that data that your customers, how it's performing for them.
So in the event that you don't have a config section where you can inject the Raygun config, you can do that programmatically as well. So the configuration of your API keys and hooking up into the application domain to get all the unhandled exceptions.
Hopefully that helps, David. And you know, if you'd like some more information, I'm happy to connect you to the team, and we can really dig into it in a little bit more detail. Andre at raygun.com, and I'll help you find the right person, which is not me in this case, but I can certainly facilitate. All right, well, hey, perfect timing. We're a couple minutes before the hour. I think that we should wrap it up. There might be some other questions coming through, but we'll reply to those directly in the email. Thank you so much, Holly Innocent, for running through everything today. I know it was a little bit of a setup getting that that demo app. It's a shame we use this a lot ourselves, and we have such rich data across our applications and our website. But obviously, when you're talking about really customer-centric monitoring, it gets quite sensitive. So it's quite an interesting thing to demo. But I think you guys have done a good job today, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thanks to everyone who's been listening to us. It's great having you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Holly, you have a good day. Innocent. Everyone out there.
Thanks. Cheers,
Thank you, everyone.
All right, see you later. Shutting it down.